Welcome to Side Chat, where we explore the psychology behind what really works at work. I'm Dr. Austin Tay, and today we are discussing something that might initially seem trivial, but is actually very serious business. Imagine this: you're in a tense quarterly review meeting, the figures are declining, the atmosphere is bleak. Then your CEO leans back and says, "Well, at least we are all consistently disappointing together." That's team cohesion, right? The room bursts into nervous laughter. Suddenly, everyone can breathe again. Your first thought? Either thank God someone broke the tension, or is this really the time for jokes? That moment of humor might have revealed more about your organization than any PowerPoint presentation ever could. And the leader who made that joke? They could be wielding one of the most sophisticated leadership tools available. Today, we are diving into what I call the humor advantage. Why the leaders who know when to laugh might actually understand their organizations better than anyone else. For decades, humor at work was viewed as unprofessional and frivolous, more suitable for a holiday party than a boardroom. Yet, researchers have quietly studied workplace humor for the past 40 years, and what they have found is impressive. Richard Branson once said, "A little humor is good for the soul." And Dwight Eisenhower observed, "A sense of humor is part of the art of leadership, of getting along with people, of getting things done." They weren't just being folksy, they were onto something backed by serious science. Studies demonstrate that humor not only makes work more enjoyable, but also produces tangible business benefits: enhanced team performance, stronger group cohesion, increased creativity and innovation, greater employee resilience, and more effective leadership overall. But not all humor is created equally. The kind of humor you employ as a leader can either strengthen your team or weaken it. Researchers identified four main styles of humor that people use. As a leader, understanding which one you default to matters. Number one, affiliative humor is the good stuff. It's inclusive, builds relationships, and brings people together. Think of it as humor that says, "We are all in this together." Number two, self-enhancing humor is the ability to see the funny side of stressful situations. It's a coping mechanism that genuinely works. These are the leaders who can laugh at themselves when things go wrong. Number three, aggressive humor. This is a response to problems. It involves sarcasm that stings, teasing that wounds, and jokes made at someone else's expense. It might provoke a laugh, but it damages trust. Number four, self-defeating humor occurs when you make yourself the punchline to seek approval. Seems harmless, right? But as a leader, it can damage your credibility. Here's what's interesting. Research by Kong and colleagues in 2019 shows it's not about being a naturally funny person. It's about how you deliberately use humor in your leadership. A meta-analysis by Mesmer Magnus and colleagues in 2012 validated these patterns across numerous studies. Using positive humor styles appropriately has been associated with improved leader membership relationships, increased employee trust, reduced status gaps, better psychological well-being, and higher work engagement and performance. Leaders who rely on negative humor styles, the opposite effects occur. Damaged relationships, lower trust, disengaged teams. Humor is an incredibly powerful tool, but you need to know which end to hold. Now here's my favorite part of the research. Researchers Hatch and Ehrlich discovered something fascinating back in 1993. Spontaneous humor in organizations often arises during moments of contradiction, incongruity, or tension. When people tell jokes at work, they're often highlighting something deeper, some paradox or ambiguity lurking beneath the surface. Let me give you an example from their research. They studied a management team dealing with a security issue. The company was installing card access systems, hiring guards, the whole 9 yards. And the managers kept making jokes about it. Fingerprint scanners, retina scans. Maybe we should check everyone's chromosomes before they enter the building. Funny stuff, right? But the humor was revealing something deeper. These managers needed to implement security measures, playing the role of guards, but they also felt like they themselves were being controlled by these same measures, becoming prisoners. They were simultaneously the controllers and the controlled. The humor revealed what Hatch and Ehrlich called the paradox of control. It also highlighted a never-ending cycle. What begins as a solution becomes a problem that demands a new solution, which then creates more problems. Round and round. The jokes weren't merely jokes. They served as the organization's method of coping with tension that serious discussions couldn't quite manage. What do people joke about at your workplace? Meeting overload? Work-life balance? Bureaucracy? Those jokes may reveal where your organization is facing unresolved contradictions. I recall working with a client who shared the story with me. His leader constantly changes his strategy, so they no longer take him seriously and often joke about how long these strategies will last or even work. Funny? Sure. However, it was also revealing that there was a profound lack of trust in leadership's ability to have a coherent long-term vision. The organization was dealing with ambiguity around direction and purpose. Another client joked about how his role has changed in the last 3 months due to a merger. He used to be the CFO of the acquired company, but after the merger, he became a finance director, reporting to his new boss. As a leader, if you are paying attention to when and why humor emerges, you're getting free intelligence about what's really going on in your organization. According to sociologist Michael Mukay, humor occurs because mundane, serious discourse simply cannot cope with its own interpretive multiplicity. In other words, humor provides us with a way to recognize contradictions that serious conversation cannot accommodate. Humor isn't a cure-all. Whether it helps or harms depends on several factors. Trust is essential. Research by Lee in 2015 shows that when trust is high, humor enhances relationships and sparks creativity. When trust is low, the same joke can appear insincere or inappropriate. Gender here plays a role. Studies by Decker and Rotonda in 2001 found that female leaders used less positive humor overall, but when they did, it had a stronger effect on perceived effectiveness compared to male leaders, although this varies across cultures. Timing is crucial. Even positive humor can fail at the wrong moment. During a crisis, when giving serious feedback, we need to read the room. Culture is vital. What is seen as amusing in Western cultures might be viewed as offensive or confusing in Eastern cultures. Research by Yue and colleagues in 2016 shows that humor has traditionally been associated with intellectual superficiality in some Eastern contexts, although these perceptions are evolving. And here's a significant point: appropriateness. Research by Bitterly Brooks and colleagues in 2017 shows that while all humor displays confidence, inappropriate humor signals incompetence and can actually diminish your status as a leader. Humor is a high-stakes, high-reward tactic. Get it right, and you are strengthening your teams. Get it wrong, and you are damaging yourself. So, what does effective use of humor look like in practice? Research has identified several key ways leaders use humor strategically: to create team cohesion, to navigate power dynamics, to soften difficult messages, and to stimulate creativity. I worked with a marketing and communications director who employed this approach. Whenever her team made a mistake, and in their fast-paced environment, errors were inevitable, she would begin the debrief with a self-deprecating joke about a mistake she had made earlier in her career. Okay, this reminds me of the time I accidentally sent the wrong information to our original counterpart. Well, at least you guys kept it in-house. What did this do? It immediately reduced defensiveness. It said, we all screw up, including me. It created psychological safety. And then she would shift into serious mode to actually analyze what went wrong and how to prevent it. She used humor strategically to create the right emotional environment, then got down to business. Another executive I know practices what he calls tension spotting. When his team keeps making jokes about the same thing repeatedly, he takes notice. Those jokes serve as data points. Is everyone joking about how many approvals are needed to get anything done? That's feedback about bureaucracy. If the jokes are all about work-life balance, that's feedback about workload and boundaries. He doesn't just laugh along. He uses humor as a diagnostic tool to identify what needs to change. Humor works differently depending on your position within the organization. This is one of the most fascinating findings from recent research. For frontline leaders, positive humor is beneficial, but not essential. You can make up for it with other leadership skills. However, the higher you progress, the more crucial humor becomes, specifically the right kind of humor. Consider it from your team's viewpoint. When a senior executive displays genuine humor, especially self-deprecating humor, it stands out. It fosters trust in a way that humor from someone with less authority might not. It signals I have power, but I'm not taking myself too seriously. I'm human, just like you. But aggressive humor from a senior leader lands differently too. When someone with that much power uses humor to belittle or exclude, it doesn't just sting, it destroys psychological safety across the entire organization. The higher you climb, the more your humor matters. Specifically, the more you need the humility to laugh at yourself, not just at others. So, how do you develop this as a leadership skill? First, understand your default style. Are you naturally affiliative, aggressive, self-deprecating? Knowing your baseline helps you adjust your behavior. Martin and colleagues created the Humour Styles questionnaire in 2003 to help individuals identify their tendencies. It has been widely used in research ever since. Second, use humor strategically. Don't just be funny for humor's sake. Ask yourself, what's the purpose? Am I building connection, diffusing tension, creating psychological safety? Third, build trust first. Humor works best when there's already a foundation of trust. If your team doesn't trust you, your jokes will land differently than you intend. Lee's research in 2015 found that the relationship between humor and positive outcomes like creativity becomes much stronger when trust in the leader is high. Fourth, observe patterns carefully. When does humor surface within your team? What topics are people joking about? Are they recurring themes? That's your organization speaking to you. Fifth, read the room. Take into account context, culture, and individual differences. What works in one situation might fall and fail in another. 6. Be genuine. Forced humor is worse than no humor. Find a style that matches who you truly are. Here's a simple exercise to try this week. Notice when humor emerges naturally within your team, during meetings, on Slack, or elsewhere. Record what people are joking about and look for patterns. Are there recurring themes? What tensions or contradictions might these jokes reveal? Then ask yourself, is there something I need to deal with that these jokes highlight? This isn't just about being more amusing at work. It's about understanding how humans handle tension, ambiguity, and paradox. Modern organizations are full of contradictions. We must act quickly and also slow down to do things properly. We need individual responsibility and team cooperation. We must focus and remain adaptable. These paradoxes generate tension, and humor often helps us handle that tension without directly confronting it in a serious discussion. Leaders who understand this, who see humor not just as comic relief, but as organizational intelligence, have an advantage. They can better understand their organizations. They can resolve tensions before they escalate into crisis. They can develop stronger, more resilient teams. And yes, they also establish workplaces where people genuinely want to attend. We spend a large part of our lives at work. If we can't genuinely laugh there, laugh in a way that unites us rather than divides us, that's a lot of life spent in gloom. The leaders who understand this, they don't just achieve better results. They create the kind of workplace culture where people truly thrive. Here's what I want you to try. This week, Focus on humor in your workplace. When does it appear? What form does it take? What might it reveal? Then try intentionally using positive humor once. Perhaps a self-deprecating remark when something goes bad. Maybe an inclusive joke that unites the team during a tense moment. Notice what happens. My guess, you'll discover something about your team and organization that serious conversations couldn't uncover. And if you would like to share what you discover, please feel free to reach out to us on social media using hashtag SiteChatHumour or email sitechat@omnisci.com. I would love to hear what you find. Remember what Eisenhower said. A sense of humor is part of the art of leadership, of getting along with people, of getting things done. In today's complex, ambiguous work environments, that art has never been more valuable. Thanks for tuning into Site Chat. If this resonated, share it with someone who might need to hear it. I'll see you next time when we explore another aspect of workplace psychology that could change how you view work. Until then, stay curious and remember to have a laugh.